Hi everybody and welcome to this TableBuilder training session. My name's Lauren Binns, and as we get started today, I just wanted to acknowledge the traditional custodians of all of the lands that we're joining this training session from today. For me, that's the Palawa Pakana people of Lutruwita, Tasmania, this beautiful island that I'm privileged to call home. And I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I'd like to extend that same respect and a particular warm welcome to any members of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community who are joining this training session today. So in a moment, I'm going to be joined by my colleagues Leanne and Karen, and together we're going to present some information to you about how to make the best use of the wealth of data that's available through ABS's TableBuilder product. Going to start with some background, which we think is useful to know to be able to get the maximum value out of this data. So I'm going to cover off on some of the basic concepts that might be useful for you to know, and to explain some of the alternative ways that you might go about finding data on the ABS website. And then I'm going to hand over to Karen and Leanne, and they're going to actually walk you through some actual real-life examples of using TableBuilder and building tables. And we'll wrap up at the end of the session with some information about where you can go for extra information, and some contact details if you have further questions. So let's jump into it then. ABS TableBuilder has a whole lot of different types of information in it. Some of them have been collected through a census, which is a study of everybody in a population, and some of those data sets have been collected through sample surveys, which is where we get we identify the important groups within a population, and then we pick people from each of those groups to represent the rest of the people in that group. So a census has a lot of detail, and it can provide real insights at quite a fine level of detail. Unfortunately, because of that detail, and it is quite a timely exercise to conduct, and actually quite expensive. So we get lots of information, but not very frequently. A sample survey, on the other hand, can be much quicker and much cheaper, but because of that choice to use people to represent the whole population, it sometimes can't give us the detail that we would like. So I think it's important just to understand the difference of how the data that you're looking at has been collected, so that when you're interpreting it, you can understand the quality of that data set. The other thing that's important to know is that each of the data sets which are contained in ABS TableBuilder is supported by some metadata, some information about the different variables that is included in that data set. So here we have a screenshot of what's available for the 2021 Census of Population and Housing. This is their census dictionary, and if you're not familiar with it already, I'd highly recommend going and having a look at it. It's got a list of every variable that has been captured through the 2021 census, and provides us with some additional information about how to understand that particular piece of data. So, for example, if we clicked on the variable for country of birth of person, you can see here it's given us a definition of that variable, tells us about who's in scope, and then presents us with the classification response options for that particular variable. There's lots of different types of classifications that we use, a number of other census options. And so we can see that responses can be coded to lots of different variables. And the ones I just wanted to flag here are that where that particular question is not applicable to the person who's answering the form, we will have the not applicable code applied, or where that particular question hasn't been filled out in the survey, we'll have the not stated applied. So when you're looking at your data, if you see those two items, you might need to make a choice about whether to include them or to not include them in your analysis. Some of our classifications are hierarchical, which means that they have different layers to them. I'm going to use country of birth of the person as an example and walk you through an example of the hierarchical classification. So if we imagine in this particular case, you received a census form and it's asked you where you were born, and you were born in El Salvador. You would be completing this question using the other please specify box, and you'd type in El Salvador. When we receive that response, we would code it to El Salvador, but we would also code it to Central America and that group of countries around El Salvador, a slightly larger area. We would also code it to the Americas, that sort of continent level view of country of birth. So they're all valid, and you might pick a different level of that classification to use in your analysis or the table that you're building, depending on the purpose that you're going to use it for. You can see an example of the classification here: Americas, Central America, El Salvador, and it steps down in that hierarchy. A lot of variables, particularly in our census data set, have this hierarchical structure to them. And so instead of having to click through each different level, we have a search functionality, which often we'll find useful for these really long, detailed hierarchical classifications. Leanne's going to give you an example of how to use that search function in her walkthrough. So another important element to understand as you're building your tables in TableBuilder is around geography. And this is the way that we picture or break up Australia in particular to its different size bits and pieces. I like to think of it as a jigsaw puzzle. For some jigsaw puzzles, you want big chunky pieces that covers that landmass quickly. For other purposes, you might want really fine, detailed information, really small pieces of your jigsaw puzzle. So on the left-hand side, we have the geographic classifications that are maintained by the ABS, and we'll have a look at the ASGS, the middle column, in a moment. On the right-hand side, we have some that are not maintained by the ABS, but actually will probably be quite familiar to many of you, things like your local government areas, your electoral boundaries. So the ASGS, or the Australian Statistical Geography Standard, is one of the building blocks, the cornerstone foundations of geography for us here at the ABS. We build up this geography from mesh blocks, which is kind of the size of a city block. It's got about 30 to 60 households in it. And we can add up mesh blocks to get to a statistical area level 1. That sort of jigsaw size puzzle is about 400 people big. And those SA1s can add up to SA2s, which we're getting up to about 10,000 people, add up to SA3s, to SA4s, and add up then to that sort of state territory level. And as you're all well aware, the state territory levels can add up to this big Australian national picture. So having in mind what geography you're going to use as you're getting ready to build your table in TableBuilder is quite important as well. On this slide, I've just got an example here of a couple of different geographic boundaries, different jigsaw puzzle pieces around Wyong. And so we can see here in yellow, the LGA boundary is represented for the Central Coast, which is different to the SA3 level boundary, which is the dotted blue line around Wyong. We've got the state electoral division in red, and then the SA2, which is that smaller level detail of the actual town itself, in green. And so it makes quite a difference around which particular geography you're using. We've seen 3 different structures here. Depends on, and then you can choose the level of detail that is most useful for you. Right, so the next thing that I'd like to cover then is a really quick run through of other places that you might be able to access data on the ABS website. TableBuilder is awesome, but it can be complicated for some people to use, and there might be a simpler, easier way for you to access data. When you open up the ABS website, you'll see a screen that looks a little bit like this. At the top, there's a black banner with a couple of different options for you to select. If you clicked on the statistics link, it'll take you to a page that looks a little bit like this, where you can see data organised by themes. In this case, you can see some statistic releases related to the economy and to labour statistics, and further down the screen, you'd see some related to population statistics and a whole bunch of other important pieces of information. So if you click on one of those tiles, it'll take you through to data sets related to and publications related to that particular theme. Back on the front page on the left-hand side of the screen, we have our recent releases scroll bar on the left-hand side, and links to interesting things that we think might be popular searches. So lots of different ways that you can access information there. If we clicked on the census tab in the top black banner, you'll see a screen that looks a little bit like this. So this will help us narrow down specifically to census data. The Find Census Data box, I'll explore through that one in a moment. The Census Data Dictionary there in the middle, I mentioned at the start, it's a great resource for finding out extra information about what a particular question, what a particular variable in the census is all about. And then on the right-hand side, we've got some of the tools and places that we can go to access census data. So imagine we've clicked on the Find Census Data tab. We now have a couple of more tiles where we can search for census data. We can look at it by region, a couple of different options. So if we click on the Find Census Data, we come up with a couple of different options. The first one that I wanted to tell you about is Quick Stats. So this is a snapshot of selected data. It can be available at any level of geography you like, down to about an SA1. So to make this one work, you type in the location that you're interested in the search bar. It'll bring up, do you mean Wyong? Do you mean the LGA? It'll help you navigate to the geography that you're after. And then it will bring up a predefined set of data for that particular region. On the left-hand side are some summary stats, and as you scroll down the page, you'll see some more detailed data. I've copied the people and population table from further down the screen here for you to have a quick look at now. Another option for looking at census data is community profiles. Now, this provides really detailed data in a spreadsheet format, so you can download those spreadsheets and have a play with the predefined tables that are included in there. The time series profile, which is one of those downloadable spreadsheets, will let you compare data from the 2011, 2016 and 2021 censuses, where those data classifications are comparable across those three time periods. A third option for looking at census data is our Data Explorer package. So this is similar in functionality to TableBuilder in that you can choose what columns and what rows you choose to put in your table from some predefined filters on the left-hand side of the screen. And then just for completeness, I thought I'd also mention that the ABS provides access to detailed microdata, so this is very fine level data, through a platform called the ABS Data Lab. Now, because this data is so detailed, because it has that granularity to it, we do put extra restrictions on who can access this. So we need to make sure that the people who are accessing that detailed data in Data Lab have a really clearly defined purpose, that they've done specific training about understanding their rights and responsibilities using that data. But it does free up a real opportunity to do complex analysis on really detailed data. So the reason that we're all here today and undertaking this training is ABS TableBuilder. So this allows us to create, save and download tables that we've defined using the microdata that's stored safely within it. We'll be able to create tables with the columns of the variables that we would like and rows of variables of interest, and it creates and confidentializes that table on the fly. So really provides a lot of access to data that is useful in a really timely manner. To access TableBuilder, you will need to apply for registration. So there's a link, the web address to go and do that if you've not already created an account is on the screen now. It's a simple process to sign up. It is free, and it will generate a user ID and a password for you that you then use to sign into the account. So that's where I'm going to leave you today, and I'm going to hand you over to Karen now, who's going to take you through a worked example looking at marital status by age. Over to you, Karen.
Thank you, Lauren. So moving on to TableBuilder. Personally, I find the easiest way to access TableBuilder is from the ABS website home screen. If you scroll down to the very bottom of the page, there is a link, Microdata and TableBuilder. Select this link. From there, it takes you to the Microdata and TableBuilder homepage. Select the TableBuilder tile. That will take you to the screen that Lauren had up earlier. Select the Login to TableBuilder link. This screen enables people who need to register, and those who have a user ID to log on, which I will do now. Okay, so this is what TableBuilder roughly should look like for you. Now, those who've used TableBuilder in the past would have been familiar with a census TableBuilder product and a survey TableBuilder product. In recent months, the ABS has combined these into one TableBuilder product, making it easier for users to access all of their information in one location. Now, for the purposes of today's exercise, we are concentrating on census data. You see a little arrow here, or twisty as they're also known. This allows you to expand and collapse different categories within the data sets, both here and on future screens. So if we expand information around the 2021 census of population and housing, you will notice there is a Census TableBuilder Basic and a Census TableBuilder Pro. The Census TableBuilder Basic access is provided to people who register using their home email, the Gmail address, if you will. The Census TableBuilder Pro is provided to people who register with an organisational or business email address. For today's exercise, we are going to look at the basic TableBuilder product. In looking at this product, we'll click on the cultural diversity dataset for the sake of interest. You will notice, or you may have noticed, that suddenly some tables have popped up here in the centre. This is where, and they change depending on which dataset you select. This is where pre-saved table shells, if you like, the ABS have created for your use. This is where they're saved. They're there for your use in the hope they will make life easier for you. And on the far right-hand side of the screen, you will notice there's a range of supporting material. There's a link to the Census Data Dictionary, one to the Census Geography, and then there's also information on the TableBuilder User Guide and troubleshooting tips, hints, etc. Now, for today's exercise, the first exercise today, we are looking at building a table on registered marital status of females aged 20 to 49 by state and territory. Now, if you notice, well, you may notice, there is actually a table in the predefined tables by the ABS on census registered marital status by sex. So let's go in and have a look. Okay, so this data set, or table, should I say, contains the registered marital status, sex. Now, noting we only are interested in females, this has males and females, and it contains state. We have two choices when building our table. We can use a predefined table such as this and amend it to suit our needs. So if we were going to do that, you might drag sex, because it's more than what we need, drag it from its current location and drop it in the rubbish. But for the sake of today's exercise, we're actually going to build a table from scratch. But before we clear the table using this button here, I do want to point out the eyes next to the various data items. They're links, and they will take you to the census dictionary, but the specific page relevant for that data item. So if you click on the eye here, it would take you to the registered marital status data item page in the Census Data Dictionary. Okay, so if we clear the table, table's clear, starting from scratch. So you might be wondering where the variables are that are available for us to play with. Expand on this little arrow here. you can suddenly see a large range, and I'm scrolling here, large range of data items. So collapse all allows you to shrink them to the highest category while seeing, the general gist of what's in this table. But before I go any further, I just want to quickly point out that in our dataset page, we had our data, the predefined data tables by the ABS. In the table view, we can also access them under saved and predefined tables. And there they are there. Registered marital status, the one we just looked at, is also available, as one would expect. Okay, so we're going to start off by looking at age and sex. As I mentioned, we're after people aged 20 to 49. Now, if we, and I always expand a data item when I'm looking at it so I can get the gist of what it's all about. So age is single year ages. In this particular categorisation of age, we have 116 to choose from. People aged 0 to 115. Now, you can individually go and select the ages if that's what you're after. If you're after all 116 different categories, you can, by selecting this little arrow here, choose age and all 116 items, and the number is always listed here so you can see how many you have to select, are automatically selected for you. Now, I don't want all those ages, but that was just to show you some of the features. In today's example, I'm interested in the 20 to 29-year-olds and 40 to 49-year-olds. Now, if you're interested in the 20 to 29-year-olds, but by single year of ages, and if we expand that here, they're all there, you can select all of those individual ages. For the sake of the argument of today's example, I'm going to look at age in 10-year age groups, but the option is there for single years if that's what you choose. And by selecting it this way, you're reducing mouse clicks. It's quick and easy. Again, I will untick all. We select our age groups. We then have the option of using our bright blue buttons up here to move them into the table, or we can just drag and drop, and it gives you the option of a column, row, or wafer. I'm going to dump them in a row for now. Now, we're also interested in females. So let's open up the sex classification, if you will. Select female. Now, in this particular instance, because we are only after females, I would recommend selecting them and putting them as a filter. And what that does in the system, when it goes through to actually generate the data, all the males get dropped out automatically. That's it, they're gone. Half the population dumped. Easy. Speeding up the process it takes to generate the table that you're after. Okay, so we have females and we have our age range. Next, we'll pull in marital status. So logically, if you read through the various categorizations here, relationships and children, logically that's where it would be. So let's expand that category. And looking through the different, categorization data items, you've got a social marital status. If we expand that, that's looking at registered marriages and de facto marriages. While that might be interesting for certain analysis, it's not what I'm interested in today. So I'll go into, underneath was a registered marital status, expanding it, that's exactly what I'm after. So again, clicking on the arrow at the end of the row, if I select MSTP, registered marital status, all of the statuses get selected. I can then add that to a row. And again, you could have dragged and dropped, your choice. Okay, so we have our females, we have our age range, and we have registered marital status. So all that's left now is to add state and territory to our table. There are a range of options to look at when choosing different geographies. For the purpose of today's example, I'm going to look at suburbs and localities. So if we expand that, we can see that this does actually include state and territories, all 9 of them. However, just for the sake of argument and understanding, again, the functionality and the advantages of those functionalities in TableBuilder, if we wanted to add all of the localities and suburbs of New South Wales, sorry, taking a bit longer than expected, And there are 4,500 of them. You could either select those that you're interested in individually, or alternatively, if you wanted all of them, you could select SAL, which is your suburban locality. That would only give you the suburbs and localities of New South Wales. If you wanted all suburbs and localities of Australia, you would select the arrow at the higher level, so your suburban localities level, and it would select SAL at that level. That would bring in over 13,000 localities. For today's table, we're going to limit it to state. I don't need a huge table. Now we put that in columns. Okay, so looking at the table we have here, it's quite a lot of information in it. And depending on what sort of analysis you want to do, you might actually decide you want to analyse the 20 to 29-year-olds as a group of individuals, and analyse their different marital statuses. You're not interested in comparing them to the 20 to 29-year-olds. So in that case, you could actually add age in 10-year age groups into the wafer. See how it's highlighted there? What that does, so we still have our age groups selected and included in the data that we're downloading. But what it will do, it will create a distinct table in this format of 20 to 29-year-olds. It will then create another one of 30 to 39-year-olds and 40 to 49-year-olds, enabling easy analysis without putting a lot of data on one page. So something to keep in mind when creating your table. Now, the other thing can be done, so you can move filters out, you can move wafers out and put them in the table. So every variable that's in the table can be manipulated, moved around, removed if you wanted to, and other variables added in. Now, once you're happy with your table, before submitting it to extract the data, so QTable, check the format that is going to be downloaded in. You have a couple of different CSV formats, XML, a zip file. My personal favourite for most of what I do is Excel, but it depends on your purpose of the table. Then hit QTable, give it a name, preferably a meaningful name. I'm typing something that's quick and easy. So my request is gone. So you get a message up the top here. Request has been successfully added to table Q. Now, this is your opportunity if you'd like to go and play more, create new tables, play with other data sets. I recommend doing so now while your table is processing. But in this particular example, we're going to go have a look at the table, go under these three dots. It gives you the link to the saved and queue tables. Select it, and here we go. I've been playing quite a bit lately. So we look for our table, and there it is, Fred. It's been completed, and we can download it. Now, I won't download it today because in this environment, I don't have access to Excel, so I can't actually show you the table. One other functionality to be aware of, this view here, if you actually want to go back and look at your table shell, for whatever reason you want to manipulate it further, you want to regenerate it because you've lost the original. If you go into view, it'll actually take you back to the table shell. So thank you for listening. I will now pass you over to Leanne to take you through yet another example and some more functions of TableBuilder.
Thanks, Karen. For today's demonstration, I'll be focusing on using the census cultural diversity data. So this is my TableBuilder screen. You can see under data set, I've still highlighted the 2021 Census of Population and Housing. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Twisty. I'll be using the Census and TableBuilder Basic, opening the Twisty, and there's my 2021 Census Cultural Diversity data set that I'll be using. So highlighting that. And as you can see, there are some saved and predefined tables ready to be used in the middle of the screen. And on the right-hand side, we have some useful links. 2021 Census Dictionary, Geography, and the TableBuilder user guide for you to use as reference. So going back to the screen on the left-hand side, I'm going to double-click the Cultural Diversity dataset. And this will bring up the table view of TableBuilder. For this demonstration, I'm going to build a table looking at English proficiency by country of birth and 5-year age breakdown. I'm going to collapse my folders so that it's easier to navigate. The first thing I'm going to do is add country of birth to my table. Now, I can go ahead and look for country of birth through each of the folders, but I can also make use of this search function at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. This is where I can type in the variable that I'm interested in adding, so country of birth. If you know the name of the variable off by heart, then that's great, or else you can also make use of keywords, or you can refer to the census dictionary. I'm going to hit enter. And that will bring up 4 variables relating to country of birth. I'm interested in the country of birth of the person. I'm going to open the twisty, and you'll see the first level of the classification containing regions of country of birth. And open the twisty again, it will take me to the second digit or the second layer of the classification, which has countries and regions. And open another twisty, it will take me to the lowest level, containing regions as well. For this table, I'm going to select countries or regions at the 2-digit level. Instead of selecting one by one, I'm going to make use of this arrow next to the country of birth and select the countries or regions at the 2-digit level. So there we go. It's all selected. And what I'm going to do is add it to my table, adding it to row. This will then appear on the right-hand side. And because I'm interested in looking at people born overseas and their English proficiency, I'm going to remove Australia from the table. So by selecting Australia and hit remove button at the top of the screen. Now, you can see the table is a bit busy at the moment. What I want to do is I want to create a custom category where I'm going to focus on people who are born overseas. So I'm going to make use of this function at the bottom of the screen, the custom data function. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. This will bring me to the next screen where I'm able to select the categories and create my new custom data group. So again, I'm going to collapse all the folders. And I know that the cultural diversity folder is what I'm after. So I'm going to open the twisty, and that's where my country of birth of person is located. So I'm going to open the twisty to look at the regions. Now I'm interested in the second digit level. So selecting this arrow, select 2-digit level, and I'm going to bring the categories across to the second step box on the right-hand side. So to do that, I will make use of this button, add it to group. And so these are the categories that I'm interested in. Now, when we see that Australia is at the top of the screen, I'm going to remove this as I want to create a group focusing on people who were born overseas. So selecting Australia and removing it from the category. Now I'm going to save this at the save button at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to give it a name that's intuitive. So born overseas, hit save. And you can see on the left-hand side, under my custom data, the cultural diversity folder has appeared. So opening the twisty, then the country of birth of person, open the twisty again, and there's my category, born overseas. So what I can do is select this, and you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, there are some functions that's become available. I can make edits. I can create a copy of it. I can select that, and I can delete the category. And okay. Select it again. Now I can download this category and share the read code with a colleague who can then upload the read code into their custom data and make use of the category. I can also rename the category. So this My Custom Data function is very handy in where you can create new categories, including geography, as well as creating custom age ranges. So this is something I prepared earlier. And if you notice, there is an age and sex folder under My Custom Data. And if we open up the Twisty for age, you can see that there are some custom age ranges, custom age groups that I've created earlier. So 0 to 14, 18 plus, 85 years and over, 85 plus, etc. So going back to my table view, I'm going to go ahead and remove this 2-digit country of birth of person. So clear table, hit OK. And I'm going to, again, I'm going to bring over the born overseas as well as Australia, as I want the total population of Australia. I'm going to add it to row and onto the right-hand side. Now, next up, I would like to add proficiency to the table. So proficiency in spoken English. Sure, proficiency. Hit enter, and that's the variable that I'm after. So I'm going to open the Twisty, look at all the categories I'm interested in adding, use this arrow and select all the categories in there. Now I'm going to add it to column. Next up, I'm going to add my 5-year age groups. Now I remember the 5-year age group variable off by heart, so I'm just going to go ahead and add it, type it in. So age 5P, enter, and there we have it. And I'm going to open the Twisty, select all the 5-year age groups, and I'm going to untick the 0 to 4 years as we're not really able to measure to understand the proficiency of children under 5. So I'm going to remove that and add it to my row. So taking a quick look at my table, everything looks great. I'm going to queue my table, but before I do that, I just want to make sure that it's in the format that I want to download it as. So Excel is great, and there are different formats that you might be interested in. So CSV, XML, as well as zip file. So Excel 2007 is what I'm after. Select that. I'm going to queue my table where it's going to retrieve the data. I'm going to give it a name that is intuitive. So English proficiency by country of birth, by 5-year age group. View my table. And I'm going to click on these 3 dots at the top right-hand side and select my Save and Queue Tables. And you can see that it's running. You can see the status of the table, and once it's ready, I'll be able to download it. So that brings us to the end of the demonstration. If you need more information on TableBuilder, I refer you to the Table User Guide. There's the Census Dictionary with information on the variables available in the census dataset. I hope you find this training video useful. For any questions about TableBuilder and how to access other ABS microdata products, please contact microdata.access@abs.gov.au. For any questions about the 2021 census, please contact client.services@abs.gov.au. Thank you and have a great day.